Hi, everybody. Welcome to Plant Powered Conversations that Sprout Ethical Change. This is the second episode in our new series. My name is Johanna, and I'm here with my friend Brieanah.
Hey there.
So we're both copywriters, marketers, and vegan, and passionate about building a more sustainable and ethical world for all beings. And we started this series, I would say basically because we want more visibility for the plant-based movement, and we want to learn from each other and from people that we hopefully interview here in the future, and hopefully even connect people with each other. Like, would you add something to that list, Brieanah?
I think that's right. Well, and then events in the movement, ways
True.
people can groups to support, like we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's true. In our first episode, we basically introduced ourselves and talked a little bit about our background. And in this second episode, we're going to talk about some of the people and brands in the movement that we follow, are inspired by, or admire for one reason or another. And it's not going to be a comprehensive list for sure, because the movement is, of course, massive, and we're just two people and we have limited time, but it's going to be like a quick look at few brands in this moment in time that we would want to share with you, and hopefully you can learn from them too and follow them.
I'd love to encourage people to comment other leaders, like their favorite ones that they're inspired by, or a news story that you're like, wow, this brand is doing this. Like, we want to know what you're inspired by, what you're seeing. Like Johanna mentioned, this is a huge movement and we cannot possibly have tabs on it all. So please let us know what you're seeing that's really cool and inspiring you.
Yeah, totally. That's a good point. And I would say, especially outside of like North America and Europe, where we're based. So I at least would be super curious to hear about brands in other parts of the world, what they're doing, or people. Like, my marketing mind is here already. I'm like, brands, but there's like people behind brands also.
We have so much to learn from each other, and that's one thing I love about the movement is like we're really like learning and building on what other brands are doing. So the more we share, the more we learn from each other.
Yeah, totally. Shall we get started? Okay, one more thing. So we try to keep these episodes to like 30-40 minutes, so just to give you like an idea of what to expect, and remember that you can like speed it up, like listen to this recording a bit faster if you want.
We'll sound like chipmunks, but it's great. Yeah. That's how I listen to all my videos.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so should I start with my...
Yeah, go for it. Take us off.
Yeah, so the first person I wanted to mention is Jennifer Stojkovic. I'm not completely sure how to pronounce this, but she's somebody I've been following on LinkedIn for a while. She's the author of The Future of Food is Female, Reinventing the Food System to Save the Planet, and also the founder of the Vegan Women's Summit, which is actually, I think, gonna happen like when we publish this episode. And Brieanah, you're going to be at the event, so that's pretty exciting. I can't make it this year, but I'm like setting the intention to be there next time. And yeah, so what Jennifer talks about a lot on LinkedIn, it's things like women's leadership, like alternative protein and food technologies, and also like diversity and inclusion. And like I'm just somehow amazed by her presence, and that's why I wanted to bring her up. Like, I feel like the word badass is kind of like a totally overused word, and I'm not always like, so like, I don't always like it, but I think when I think of her, like, the word is just like 100% accurate. Like, she's so courageous and outspoken and owns her skills and like her story and mission, and really isn't afraid to like challenge big players, because there's especially like there's been this talk about the backlash towards like the plant-based movement, and how she's like spoken about that and kind of challenged some of the narratives, and she's also like a woman of color, and it must have been really hard for her in this industry, and she's just not afraid to show up, or even if she does it anyway. And for me personally, as but even though I know like logically that my story and my background it's like what makes me special, like anybody, but it's still sometimes I like to hide and make myself small, and I'm just really like I find it very empowering what she's doing, and that's why I really wanted to like mention her and really encourage everybody to follow her and learn from her.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they still even have virtual tickets to the vegan women.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
So if it's something like, if you check her out and you check out the event and it's something you're interested in, like definitely encourage you. Johanna and I both attended virtually last year when I was in LA.
Yeah.
And found it really valuable even virtually. So if they are still available when we post this, even though it'll be kicked off like right then, do try to grab a virtual ticket. You won't regret it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. I completely forgot, and I think they were pretty affordable also, the tickets when I checked. So yeah, can't wait to hear from you a bit later how the actual real life experience is to be at the event. But yeah.
Yeah, I want to post updates on LinkedIn, so tune in for those. I'm so excited it was on my coast, just a train ride away, so I had to go in person this year. We will get you stateside. And you'll come next year, hopefully. Fingers crossed, the stars align. It would be great to hang out with you in person at that event.
Totally. And at an event like that, it would be like, oh, dream come true.
Yeah. I'm so glad you featured her. And then I wanted to talk about actually one of the speakers, Miyoko, who's going to be at Vegan Women's Summit. So it flows perfectly. And everything that you said about Jenny being a badass and a leader and a minority woman leader in this space, I think applies to Miyoko as well. She's really the pioneer of vegan cheese, especially in the States. And she's considered an American vegan activist. She's a cookbook author. She'll be there signing books. So if you're there in person and watching this, definitely check that out. But she's a chef and an entrepreneur, and she's just like leading the way of what it means to be a powerful female entrepreneur in a like heart-centered, passionate way. And I'm sure, you know, she's pretty well known in the movement. So if you do already follow her, you've seen what's happened recently with her board, basically kicking her out of her own company. And now there's a lawsuit around that that I won't go into too much detail on because it's ongoing. We're going to see what happens there. But it's really disheartening to see corporate America push out such a empathetic, strong female minority leader that means so much to so many people in this movement and so many supporters of the brand. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And we're all supporting her.
Yeah.
Fair to say, and rooting for her to come out on top in that litigation. But aside from that, what I really, really admire about her and her brand that she built up until that point was that it had that vegan activist focus. It had that heart and that empathy the entire time. It wasn't just, let me create something that's an alternative food. It was a why that we could all get behind. There was an empathy that we all shared, and she really brought people in and helped them experience one of the hardest things for people to give up when they go vegan, right, is cheese.
Yeah.
And she really made it approachable and then brought them along in the story of what it meant to be plant-based, what it meant to be vegan for the environment and animals outside of that. And so if you don't follow her, definitely do, if for nothing else than to support a wonderful female leader that needs your support right now. but yeah, I just had to bring her up, and I'm so excited to hear her at Vegan Women's Summit, and she will definitely be in an update.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I actually like discovered her like not that long ago. Somehow I realized that she's, or maybe like in the circles where I move, or in my social media, like in Europe, like she I feel like didn't have like such a like this almost like a celebrity status, but I'm like so happy to have discovered her, and it's just wishing her all the best, and you know, I believe that, you know, good people win and justice wins in the end. So
definitely, we have to believe that, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't you know, what's the point in anything otherwise?
Have hope. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of hope, who's next on your list?
Yes. Let's look at my papers. So the second kind of brand and person podcast I wanted to bring up is Eat for the Planet podcast with Neil Zacharias. So Neil is the founder and CEO of Plantega, a startup on a mission to make plant-based food easier to access everywhere. I actually don't know like his brand so well, but I know the podcast. I've been listening to it for like a couple of years, I think, not every episode. But yeah, Eat for the Planet, it's I would say like a leading podcast in this space, like covering people and ideas and like technologies in this plant-based food scene. So the idea, like it's based on conversations or interviews, and it's like there's like food industry leaders, health experts, sustainability experts, entrepreneurs, and just different creative minds there. And what I love about this podcast, I mean, it is a bit US centric, but like I feel it just covers such a broad variety of people and backgrounds. And I think if you keep listening to this podcast, you're going to stay like really well up to date about what's going on in this movement, and all the, you know, all the people like who to follow. It's just like an amazing resource. And yeah, there was a time that I used to go for walks with my dogs, and I always had like one episode on the background, just like surrounding myself with this knowledge. And yeah, I really love it. And there's already like nearly 2,200 episodes, so there's a lot to listen. And they're also quite like not beefy, but like beanie or something. Like they're quite long. Quite long, like an hour, some even longer. Wow. So there's a lot to learn from. Yeah. So
cool. Okay, I'm gonna add that one to my list, because summer travel, or depending on where you're watching this from, it might be a different season, but in the States it's summer, and so as I'm on planes and driving around, I'm going to be listening to those episodes. That's a great recommendation. Very good. Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, sure. And what's next for you, or on your
I'm glad you brought up like the concept of resources and how we can learn from each other, and people that are really just sharing knowledge. Really flows well into the next person I want to talk about. Her name is Brenda Sanders.
Okay.
And powerful principal, and she's involved in so much and has done so much, but it's all based in cultural shifts and community building and community activism. And so sharing those resources, educating people, and really meeting them where they are to show them the health benefits, the environmental impacts, but in a really approachable way. And especially in communities of color, minority communities, she's going to them. She talks a lot about like doing cooking demonstrations in churches, you know, and really being boots on the ground in the work that she does. And
where is she based?
Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah, in the States. So she's the executive director of the Afro Vegan Society. She's the co-creator of the Vegan Soul Fest. co-owner of the Greener Kitchen. I mean, she's all over the place, really trying to get people in the fold, bring them in, and just make it super accessible. Because she talks a lot about, and I'll mention too, she has an essay in this book, The Good It Promises, the Harm It Does. And I know it's backwards, so I'll put a link when we post this, but it's a series of essays about effective altruism and the impacts that it has on this movement. And very high level, because I'm still learning about it myself, effective altruism is kind of a corporate approach to giving, and because it's based on statistics and return on investment. And so she talks about the struggle of community-based activism getting funding because investors don't really understand, okay, but what is the return on investment? People are you reaching, and what's the impact of that? To her, it's more important to go to somebody's house and have a conversation about food and culture and like really identify and meet them where they are and where they're comfortable, than to just like put out a bunch of information and hope that it sticks. And that's how Vegan Soul Fest has really grown. They really infuse this cultural aspect into veganism, and it comes from a place of like people first, that I really respect. And so I definitely recommend the book. I recommend her essay and checking out those events, and I'll put all the links in the post as well. But I just really wanted to feature her in the programming and resources that she puts out there, because it is, in many ways, like people outside the movement look at veganism and they're like, oh, radical, like, and then they just don't want to touch it. And so the empathy that she leads with and trying to pull people in with things that interest them is just really inspiring, and a really, really interesting approach that I encourage you to learn more about.
Okay, amazing. I'm gonna mark down and the book. Like, I also recently discovered this effective altruism. There's one, like, I guess you could call this person like a vegan influencer in Finland who's like talked about it, and I was like, oh, okay, what is this? And happy to learn more about that too.
It's really interesting to see how it's shaped the animal rights and environmental movements in particular, you know, so they kind of dictate what gets funding and so what gets done. So it is a good read. And we'll have to do an episode about that. We'll do like a book club episode or something.
It's a good idea.
All right, who's next for you?
So now I want to move more towards marketing and bring up a brand. They're called Heura Foods. I'm not totally sure if I'm pronouncing that right now. It's
sounds good to me.
I think like Heura. So Heura is a Barcelona based plant-based meat company, and what is special about them is that they're really combining their activist background with science to produce something that they call meat successors. So not like meat replacements or alternative meat, but really kind of the what comes after meat. And I found so last autumn, or like September 2022, I was at this new food conference in Berlin, and that's where I discovered Heura, the co-founder. There's two guys who founded it, and he's the CEO now, Mark Koloma. He did a presentation which was basically on branding, like how being a unique brand. The idea of the talk was that like building a unique brand, that it can like elevate the entire category, kind of like when we're talking about like plant-based meat, for example. And I was just blown away. I mean, well, like we're both geeking on like marketing anyways and branding, and then to like come to this conference that's all about plant-based food, and there's like this like amazing talk about branding, and I'm just like, my mind is gonna explode. This is so awesome. Like, how can you kind of combine two things I love so much? So I was so inspired, and they like again like empowered me, because they're like animal rights activists, like their background. Like I think Mark, I think he like quit school at 16 to become an activist, and like he was really like grassroots activism, like activists like demonstrating and different kinds of things. And then it just felt like at some point that as much as they did, it wasn't making like a big enough impact. And I mean, this is also my experience as an activist, that it's just never enough, and things progress so gradually. So then they decided to start making like something that has never been seen before, like basically they started with like I think burgers, and now they have this like different kinds of like meat successor products, and they're the market leader in this category now in Spain. And like I'm kind of repeating myself, but what is so amazing is that they really don't shy away from their story, that they have this activist background, that they have a mission, and they openly call themselves like food rebellions, and they're about like changing the status quo, and they've really built like a movement around the brand. And I think this is like, that's really special. I think they have, I wrote it down, they have something like over 200,000 followers like on the Spanish like Instagram, and I think that's pretty amazing for like a food brand. And they've grown massively in just a few years. I think they just turned 5 or 6.
Wow.
And it's just like I wanted to mention this brand because I think it's so powerful, especially for people who have this kind of like alternative activist background, and who might be a bit like trying to find another way to change the world, if for one reason or another they can't be activist, or like this is not the path anymore. That it's a strength, and you can really like lean into that, and you don't need to, because I even sometimes feel like, okay, maybe I should be more like, I don't know, professional, or more, I don't know, corporate, like something that I'm not. But it's so amazing to see that when you're so real, this is what people want and what they love, and this is how you really bring your people to you. So I'm just like really love them. And I also wanted to mention that Mark, the CEO, was included in this International Food Heroes list. You actually mentioned this. And I really recommend checking out that list anyways. There's amazing people to learn from. And there was a quote from him in the listing, and he said, "I transformed my anger into creating Heura as a vehicle for change." And I love it. It's really, I think it's very just amazing. Also badass. Like time, I guess.
So inspirational. I know you and I both have like that activist mindset, and so to see someone be able to channel it in such a successful, proactive way, and building a brand as successfully as he has, I get why you're obsessed with them. I'm definitely gonna go follow them now.
And if like I just want to say this, if anybody's watching this who has like an activist background, or whatever background you have, and you're trying to build a business, or you're building a business, or you're like already out there, like really trust us that your story is the secret sauce. Like you don't need to be anything you're not, and just own it, and it's going to bring your people to you. So I think
so true. Authenticity. There we go. Ooh, got tongue-tied. Authenticity wins at the end of the day. The more open you are with people, the more you find your tribe. Our fearless leader, Alex Catoni, in the Copy Posse always talks about like finding your tribe, finding your people, and when you build your voice. And so leading with exactly what you said, who you are, that's how you build your business. And the people that are your biggest fans will find you and support you.
Yeah.
That's such good advice, Johanna.
I learned from the best.
Well, and speaking of brands that are being authentic and putting it all out there, I cannot let a conversation about leaders go by without mentioning Slutty Vegan and Pinky Cole, because she has just shaken up the vegan food world. And I mean, her brand is called Slutty Vegan. So can we just have a minute?
That's already pretty nice. Yeah.
Right. And all the names for the different burgers and stuff all have slutty puns. And so she's just really leaning into a very in your face, but humorous, and I love it so much. And because it adds humor, it makes eating vegan, which we've talked about, can be like a very taboo to some people. It makes it accessible. It leads with a fun energy that people want to be around. And she's done it also in a model where it's like a fast food, right? So like a McDonald's or something. So it's even more accessible from like that cultural or experience standpoint too. And I just am obsessed with everything Pinky Cole does. Her cookbook is on my kitchen counter. Like I just love the boldness, especially as a woman, to be like, yeah, I'm gonna call my brand Slut. Like, okay, we're gonna own it. And so that bravery, that courage, and talk about a fearless female leader, a minority leader. She is expanding her brand constantly. I think they're opening up a new location near me in Washington, D.C. So I'm so excited. Yeah, just absolutely had to talk about that when we're talking about authenticity, because she's just leaned into it. And then also, I think another brand that's doing it really well is Oatly, the alternative milk brand. Like they're constantly in the news for their ads, and they're not afraid to take on big dairy. Like many of you have probably seen the recent billboard stunt that they pulled. They put a billboard up with their emissions statistics and called the dairy industry out to fill in theirs. They left a blank for the dairy industry on this huge billboard next to theirs. And again, the bravery of leaning into who you are and not being afraid to lead with that activist mindset too, like you were just talking about. Like, hats off. I think those are two brands that are just really leading with story, leading with authenticity, and getting people excited about it, because it is so different. It's not, vegan food isn't this niche, hippy dippy, like in the corner of the health food store thing anymore. It's very accessible, and the everyday person wants it and wants to be involved or learn about it now. So I just love that they're tapping into that.
Yeah, well, Oatly, I mean, they're on a whole, in a category of their own. Did you hear they also launched these websites like for Oatly haters, something like oatlysucks.com or something like that? And I actually didn't go and see it, what the information is, but they're just like, they're all owning it all, and it's just like like
I think we could have like a whole nother chat just about like infamous marketing that we loved. Maybe we'll do that next. So if you guys have seen an ad, or there's a brand you follow that's like really pushing the boundary in some way, please let us know. Send us a message or put a comment. We'd love to do like a deep dive into what's working in the movement.
Yeah, totally. Very cool.
We're both marketing nerds, so the more you send us, the happier we'll be.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, that would be awesome.
And then I also think, Johanna, that no conversation about leaders and movement can be complete without really recognizing how intersectional the vegan movement is. Like, we've talked about minority leaders, women leaders. We've talked about different countries, and I think too, it crosses so many different issues. Like, especially in the States, it crosses issues of race, and then broader, it crosses issues of the environment, emissions we touched on, and then environmental, animal welfare concerns, especially with farm animals, right? Because they're being farmed for food. And so I do want to just briefly touch on a few other people that are more focused in some of those areas that cross veganism, but they're perhaps more focused on the environmental impacts or the animal impacts. And a lot of you have probably heard of these people, but just had to throw them in the conversation. So Greta Thunberg for her environmental advocacy, Genesis Butler for her environmental and animal advocacy. Both are very young people, and they are so influential in using their voices to really mobilize a younger generation, which is so inspirational. Jean Bauer, the president and co-founder of Farm Sanctuary, which was America's first shelter for farmed animals. Like, hats off. He's done so much amazing work. And then Temple Grandin is one of my personal heroes. She's an American academic and animal behaviorist, and she really focused the majority of her work on the humane treatment of livestock for slaughter. And so the more that we dive into that narrative of how animals think and how animals feel, I just thought that her work was so influential. I had to bring it up in a conversation about the vegan movement and leaders in it.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you for those. I think I will add a few more to the comments when this, or like my post when this episode goes live.
I look forward to that list.
And again, like a reminder to everybody listening or watching, like send us your recommendations or add them in the comments. Like, we'd love to hear from you. Absolutely.
Oh, this was such a good conversation. I could keep talking to you like all day about leaders in the movement. But I'm sure everyone else is ready for us to wrap up. So I'll just say thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like, this just gets more and more fun. Like each episode, I mean, it's been 2 now, but like, can't wait for the next one. And like, really thank you for your time, of like Brieanah, you, and like everybody listening and watching. Like, I know we're all busy, and it's amazing that you share your time with us. And
I totally agree. Well, till next time, same time, same place. We will again try to post on the 3rd Thursday of every month. If you have ideas for a future episode, or you have those marketing examples that we could dive into next time, please let us know. And we're excited to do this again with you.
Cool.
Bye for now.
Bye.